This is Paul Leon, and you're listening to Persistent Manager, supported by my wife, Trisha Leon, the podcast where we help middle managers develop leadership skills while being toxic free. Today, we're going to talk about how objections don't just exist in the sales world. Recently I went to get glasses. Now, I don't like getting glasses everywhere. They're expensive, but I figured I got to get my eyes checked. It's been some time. And maybe getting contacts as well, these glasses. And the optometrist didn't have any contacts on hand. So he said, you know what, Paul? I'll mail them to you. It'll take a couple of days. And a couple of weeks went by and I had no contacts. And life got busy, like it does for all of us. Bills, kids, practices. And I felt like this one day, after a couple weeks, I couldn't catch up on these projects and I needed to push them forward. And then I get a letter in the mail from a postman saying, you've missed your certified letter. And my mind went into overdrive because I was so induced with all these projects and initiatives. And I'm thinking, like, this is probably a letter from the IRS. I didn't pay enough taxes. Is this a student loan bill? Like, what is going on? My brain just went down all these crazy scenarios. And my brain has a tend to do this where they call it a blind narrator. Have you ever seen the movie Gone Girl, where they show one part of the story that you don't see, and the other part of the story, they show the other part? Well, my mind was just doing the first part where I just wasn't really understanding what was there. I even went to the gym the next day at 4:50 a.m. I couldn't sleep. It kept spiraling out of control. Like, what is in the certified letter? Couldn't they just email to me? And I was getting angry and stressed out. I even started listening or trying to listen to angry music. But when I typed it in on my iPhone, it just gave me a bunch of breakup and love songs. I'm like, this is not what I wanted. I want angry music to get over this anxiety feeling I'm having. And I couldn't wait any longer. I even took the note to the post office the next day and after the gym and stayed in line. Luckily, I was the only one. Nobody else was there. And I gave it to the lady, and she gives me this tiny package, and I rip it open, worried, stressed, and it's a pair of contact lenses. The ones I had completely forgotten about, with a note that said, we hope you can see clearer with these as we work to help you. Why am I telling you this? Because it perfectly illustrates how we can build up objections and narratives in our head that aren't grounded in reality. In my case, I had created an entire disaster scenario for something as simple as a pair of contact lenses. This doesn't just happen in our personal lives. It happens in the workplace all the time. Whether you're a manager dealing with team dynamics or someone leading a project, unspoken objections and assumptions can derail your progress if you don't have them on hand. Objections aren't just something that salespeople deal with. They exist in leadership, decision-making, and team culture. And sometimes the biggest objections you'll face are the ones you're not even saying out loud. Just like I never voiced my frustrations or fear of what could be in that letter, but it was all consuming all the same. As managers, we got to learn how to identify these silent objections before they become full-blown challenges. Whether it's a team member disengaging or someone resisting a new direction without openly saying it, those are signs of unspoken objections. And just like in sales, if you don't bring those objections into the open, they can quietly undermine everything you're trying to build. So how do we handle these unspoken objections? The first step is to listen to what's being said. Paying attention to shifts in behavior when someone pulls back, hesitates, or seems disengaged. Don't wait for them to come to you. Ask the open-ended question that invite them to share what's really on their mind. Something as simple as, what concerns do you have about this new approach that's going on? Can approach a conversation that brings hidden objections into the light. It's the same principle I've used for massive amount of years in consultative selling. You don't wait for the customer to say, I don't think this will work for me. You anticipate those concerns and address them proactively. As a leader, one of the best things you can do is to create a culture where objections aren't just tolerated, they're welcomed. Why? Because objections are opportunities to improve. They signal that someone is paying attention, that they care enough to challenge the process. But This is where a lot of managers tend to see things the wrong way. They see objections as pushback, or worse, as a threat to their authority. The truth is, the best teams are the ones where people feel safe enough to raise concerns. And when you can have those tough conversations early, avoid bigger issues down the road. I've seen this in my own career. I remember when I started a new sales training program for one company, I'd begin by asking, what's your biggest hesitation with this strategy? Working with stakeholders and opening the floor to objections early on the team so they could feel heard and ownership of it. And it made them feel more likely to buy into the plan when they can own it. Addressing objections isn't just about listening, though. It's about knowing when to coach and when to direct. There will be times when an objection signals a need for guidance, and that's when coaching comes in. But in high-stakes situations, sometimes you need to step in and give clear direction, which is part of the responsibilities. I've been on both sides. I worked under managers who micromanaged every little thing. And after dealing with that, I swung way too far the other way, trying to coach teams without even giving enough structure. Over time, I realized the importance of balance, coaching when it's needed and directing when it's necessary to keep things on track. Here's the takeaway. Objections aren't the enemy, whether they're in sales, leadership, or in your own mind. They are opportunities to gain clarity and build trust. The key is to recognize them early, address them openly, and know when to guide versus when to lead with clear direction. So if you found this helpful, give us a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast. It helps people to find the channel. And we want to thank you for listening to the podcast that helps develop your leadership skills while being toxic free.